I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and I'm so excited to be talking about the wonderful new season of The Other Two. We are joined today by cast members Heléne Yorke, Drew Tarver, Molly Shannon, Ken Marino, Case Walker, Brandon Scott Jones, and Josh Segarra, as well as creators and showrunners Chris Kelly and Sarah Schneider. And Chris and Sarah, starting with the two of you, I was interested in how you went into this season and really found what level of success you wanted to give each of the characters, because they're all on such different trajectories within their own storylines and narratives. And wherever they are at any point influences so much of their internal struggles, their journeys with self-validation, and so much that we then see play out in the show in terms of the emotional trajectory. So I was interested in how you looked at the external circumstances to build those around them, and then really flipped that into the internal journey that you're then in turn carrying out through the season.
No, Ken, you take that.
Ken, you got
it. It's a great question. Next question.
Yeah, we started by being like, season 1 and season 2, we watched them be really scrappy and struggle and not get what they wanted and really like claw and scrape. And so I think season 3, we were like, let's just have them keep winning and keep succeeding. And I bet you they'll still want more and still struggle and still have problems. So I think that's kind of where we started. Like even in the first episode, 3 years later, Carrie's movie finally comes out after, so long. And in the writer's room, there was conversations about like, is it bad? Is it a dud? And we found it kind of interesting to be like, no, it was good. Because then you're like, well, then what? What else? And you're like, it was good. And then I went to dinner and moved on and with my, what I mean? Like that there's like it's more interesting that it's good, because then it made Carrie sort of be like, well, then what? That didn't make me retire or solve every hole in the heart. Yeah, and same thing with Heléne. Her character was a manager and she's still a manager and she's as successful as ever. But this season, the love of her life became a nurse during the pandemic, and a lot of people shook up their lives and decided to kind of reevaluate their priorities. And am I doing the right thing with my one life? And I think she feels a little self-conscious that she's very successful and happy and doesn't feel bad about that. And so should she feel bad? Is she bad? So I think we liked we liked this season that they were coming from a place of success, and we knew that we could still find dark holes to pull them down into.
I love that. And
one of them falls into a diaper. Sorry.
The ultimate dark hole to fall into.
And speaking of Brooke, for you, Heléne, one of the things that I love about Brooke is how often, she's able to be knocked down, and she always kind of gets herself straight back up and is able to kind of like just move forward unscathed a lot of the time. But it feels like this season is kind of one of the times where she's kind of in a little bit more of that central ground with a push and pull within herself between, do I stay in the industry? Do I leave the industry? Do I do good? What is doing good? And so I was interested in how that kind of gave you a slightly different space to play to if of what it looks like when she's not just immediately picking herself up.
I think it's kind of a universal concept to have a lot of self-doubt, to kind of yo-yo on decisions you've made. And that's what I love that she lives out. I think the thing about Brooke that's fun, and I hope why she's relatable, is that she's sort of like playing out and saying out loud a lot of stuff that we do. Or maybe I'll just speak for myself. Everybody here is obviously flawless, an incredible person, and doesn't do these things. But sort of the idea of like, what is good? This person that I'm with, I know that this person is good, and I must be bad. I must be making the wrong decisions. And, I myself do that all the time. So, I think, to play in that space, to play this character just broadly, it's like so gratifying and so embarrassing that this is written for me. It's so speaks so truly to me.
And with you, Drew, one of the things with Carrie is it feels like he's someone who really struggles to be happy in the moment. So even though he's got this level of success with The Night Nurse coming out, and what Chris was saying of it is a good film and people are responding to that, he still kind of has to always like move the goalpost for himself and have something that he's yearning for. And so what was kind of the new space that you were really finding in him as a character, and the challenges that he's going through with the fact that he has kind of achieved what he's been striving for the last 2 seasons, but now that he has that, that's not enough for him.
Yeah, I think that, he definitely, like you're saying, struggles to be happy where he is, and the things that he pictured when he, got the things he thought his dreams were going to be are turning out to sort of be that, but not quite right. And he's trying to control how they're seen or viewed, or how he's viewed. And I think, you know, he's kind of like in the earlier seasons humiliated a lot, but I do find that it's even more humiliating for him this season to get what he wants and still be unhappy. Like, it's such a sadder, deeper humiliation than like, oh, I think the reason I'm humiliated is because things are going badly. And it's like, this season, it's like, okay, things are going well, and you're still sad and sort of like falling on your face. That was I thought such a deeper layer of sadness, and it was like fun to play such a sad guy.
Okay, so Drew's the one who falls in the diaper. Drew falls in the diaper.
Yeah, I kind of tipped the diaper there.
Yeah.
Alert.
I thought it was going to be subtle, but it's clearly Drew.
Sorry.
We got specific notes from HBO Max. They were like, do not say who falls into the diaper.
You know, I saved one of the diapers and I have it in storage.
What does that even mean?
Drew, I know exactly what that means. It's in your garage.
There's a diaper in my garage that I wore for a whole day.
Yeah.
There you have it forever.
You could like put it
I
in
was
the
just kind of
Academy,
like-
the Museum of Motion Pictures. You're like,
I
they're
was like, I think
for
they'll
that.
need this. I think they'll need this at LACMA.
Right next to Fonzie's jacket and Archie's chair will be your diaper.
Coming over to you, Molly, you know, it's interesting to watch Pat's trajectory in terms of having her own network and just this absolutely astronomical level of success, especially after watching the way that everything really just closed in on her at the end of last season, and what that level of stress kind of did to her physically, and her just really wanting to come back to her central ground of, I just want to spend time with my kids, and now being in a place where she can't even go for a walk without the airspace at JFK being cleared for her in advance, so she can only go as far as the swimming pool. And I was interested in, for you, kind of how you found a slightly different emotional side of everything that she's going through in terms of just this different level of success and the way that it's kind of closing in on her, but in a way that feels very different to season 2 with the chat show.
Yeah, I think that Chris and Sarah wrote her in a way where she almost speaks differently. She's really embraced her life and has come into her power and her strength as a woman and as a, you know, with an empire and a public figure. So she's just savvier. So it was really fun to play, because I've never played a character like that before in my life. So I really enjoyed it. And right, like you mentioned, still at the end of the day, what's most important to her is family. And I think that Chris and Sarah strike such a great balance between like super funny, and she says things that you would never expect her to say, but then still has heart. So I think they still kept the core of Pat, which is how much she cares about family and not wanting to lose touch with her kids.
Absolutely. And Ken, for you with Streeter, you know, he's obviously at a place of being really fearful for his irrelevancy, being fearful that Chase is going to leave him as a client. You know, and as much as that's all an external thing in terms of, okay, is my client going to stick with me? Do I need to find a singing and dancing family that I'm not necessarily as invested in, but will keep the cash flow going? What were some of the elements that you really found in him this season with that kind of constant striving to find relevancy for himself, because it's also an internal self-validation that he's looking for in regard to that as well?
Well, I mean, to me, he just wants to reassure the people that he cares about that he cares about them. Like, I mean, I love that there's a line in the first. Hold on a second, my tea's on. There's a line in the Sarah? There's a line in the first episode where he grabs Chase and he's like, "You're so fiscally valuable to me," but he says it in a loving way that sort of defines, I think, who he is. He cares both about, you know, this family and where he's positioned in their, you know, in the dynamic of this family, and then he also is, you know, he's a businessman, and so I think it's an interesting. His relationship with Pat this year is goes a little deeper, and we've where they go throughout the season is a fun journey for them and for him.
And
I don't know
off
if
the
I
bat,
answered your question. Did I black out there?
I also
He's
really
looks
like.
great.
I also really like that your character is sort of the voice of like when Helena's character is like spinning out about the industry and what we do is fucking nothing and what I don't do anything that's meaningful. This is stupid and you say at one point like after this dumb road trip, but hey, we had a time, which I like too. That it's like that's that's what it is for you. Is like I had fun. Where it's like absolutely meaningless. You wasted a full week. Everything you did was for nothing. But I had fun with my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like
I mean that's sort of
he brings to the show too.
that's a great way of looking at life, and
Yeah.
I agree with Streeter on that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
by the way, that is but to get to do that episode with Helena was one of my favorite things to do.
It was
Just
great.
as a side note.
I love that.
Me too.
Off the back of that, for you, Case, Chase is kind of re-examining a lot of his interpersonal relationships as well, because he's about to turn 18. People are literally developing vampire fangs in front of him whenever they hear that fact, and he also likewise is like, is my team going to drop me because my album came out on January 6th and nobody even realized, and I've moved so far away from music at this point. And so what were the shifts that you really saw in him with that space of, well, now that I'm not experiencing the same level of success that I was in the past, what do I mean to the people around me?
Yeah, I think there's a question. I think a little bit of that. We see that in the first episode, and his thing with Streeter is like, am I just not, a good client anymore? Like, do you not want me? I think that's in his head. And I think he's also realizing that like people, like he wants to be taken a little bit more serious. Like he actually cares about this stuff and he actually works hard and he's fine with his team advising him to do these crazy things. But, he has a goal and he isn't, about to be 18. And that means something different to him than it may to his team. Like to everyone else, it's like, money and something they can capitalize on or sexualizing him because he's turning 18 for the press. But for him, he's like, no, this isn't a joke. Like I'm an adult now, like I'm making decisions. And we get to see that a little later in the season of him kind of exploring that realm. Yeah.
And coming over to you, Brandon, one of the things I love about Curtis is how wholeheartedly he shows up for every single person around him. But now that, we're seeing him land a role instead of Carrie, we're getting to see, well, what happens when his best friend doesn't show up for him in the same way? And that's kind of recalibrating their dynamic a little bit in terms of how he's feeling. And so for you, what was the difference in terms of finding that dynamic of, I've always been there for you, and I'm starting to gradually realize that I'm not receiving this as much?
Yeah, I think I think Curtis is a guy that's done a lot of personal work that has allowed him to love others a little bit more freely than Carrie. And this season you get to see his orbit a little bit more in the world outside of just his relationship with Carrie as well. And I think that he really cares about his friends, and that if you're in his circle, like you are family, and then that is something that he holds very, very true and very, very real. And I feel like he's considered Carrie is his best friend, and they were in the trenches together for so long. So I think that it's a real violation to him when maybe he doesn't feel it reciprocated back. And I think it's interesting because success is always going to change relationships, or what happens when one person gets something that the other person wants, or vice versa. But I think what's interesting is that like it's relative in this situation, and that it's this thing that I don't think in his mind this would ever have affected the relationship on his end, but this, because it's happening now, I think it's kind of I think it's shaking his ground a little bit, which was really fun to play. Drew and I, we called those moments in this season the hard scenes, because they were like these like very like kind of like come to a head at some point. And I think it's
we would like text each other. We'd be like, I think it's 3 days until hard scene.
Hard scene.
That's so funny because it was the opposite for us. Because I remember at one point, Drew, I said to you, it is nice because we have all the hard scenes out of the way, meaning like big set pieces and stuff like that. And you were like, no, because I was like, in my mind, you two were just standing in the kitchen, but you were like, that's the hard scene.
That's the hard scene. That's the hard scene. But it's really, I don't know, it's been really nice. It's been really cool. And I think it's where a lot of shows might have the instinct to get two queer characters together. and romantic situation. This one's never followed into that path. And that's the best, because you can see that queer friendships can be just as complicated as like romantic relationships as well. And I think this one's really tested in that way. And it's just really cool. I'm so lucky to have been able to get this part.
I mean, Josh, I think similarly, Lance is someone who just, again, just really shows up for people. And he seems to be someone who really sees the things that other people don't love about themselves and finds everything that's absolutely endearing and worthy of love within those aspects as well. And so I was interested in how that informs going into a lot of scenes, you know, particularly with Brooke, but also a lot of other characters, where you're always kind of thinking, okay, well, how would he see this person? How would he see these traits that maybe aren't the best things about them, but he's going to see it in a completely different way to everybody else in the scene and every other character that's there.
It's actually a pretty freeing thing to get to play, because, you know, you walk into every day and you get to start, if we're using a barometer and 10 is most positive, nicest way to look at something, you get to start at a 10 every day and then kind of paint around those colors. So to play somebody like Lance, you know, it's been a real pleasure and it's been a lot of fun. And Heléne is one of my best, one of my dearest. So I just love her to pieces. So also getting to play a relationship with somebody that you love, you can have freedom to carve these two people out and try to paint them in a way that every relationship goes through. And they'll see us this year at a whole new level in our relationship. But with that comes its own pressures and its own dynamics. And I think that people are going to enjoy where Lance and Brookie Monster end up this third season, you know?
It was always really fun on set because we would face situations that were so insane, and me and Drew would be, you know, like being Brooke and Carrie, and like having Josh around, I would laugh out loud. I'd be like, oh my God, of course Lance is responding in this way. It was like we introduced the cases anyway, something, and he like gives him dap where me and Drew were just like totally. It was just like so fun because Josh fully inhabits Lance and makes choices and does things that are so different and surprising and great. And yeah, it's like, he's such a beloved character. People always want to talk to me about him. And I'm like, but what about me?
It's a very Brooke response.
I said that as Elena.
And Sarah, kind of coming back to the writing a little bit, one thing that's always so lovely to watch in the show is how whenever there's moments of conflict amongst the characters, it always comes from such a place of heart. And, you know, I was rewatching the hospital scene from the end of last season, and it's such a beautiful moment because it's this family all really showing up for each other, but also kind of saying what they need from one another in order to keep moving forward in that moment. And so I was just interested in how you approach writing moments where there is conflict between characters, but it never feels like it's punching down. It always feels like it's like, I love you and I need this instead.
That's good. That's nice. I mean, with that scene in particular, we what we really just tried to do was build a season towards that, where every character had a leg to stand on. And if you looked around the room, you could see where everyone was coming from. So no one was coming out of nowhere with some weird issue that you were like, what are you even talking about? You sort of saw that everyone had something to say and they were all valid. And so that's sort of similar to like, we have some big fight scenes this season, and you know, sometimes both parties are right. Sometimes both parties have a leg to stand on. Sometimes one party is clearly wrong. And we like those scenes to play like that because that's how it is. Not everyone is always in the right. Everyone just has their point of view and what they're trying to say and what they're trying to put out there. But what you're saying is true. It's all, as long as it's coming from like a story we've been telling and it's rooted in what these people are actually feeling, that's the best kind of scenes to write. Those are always sort of like, not the easiest, but they like, as long as they're like, you've done the groundwork. And so then you're like, oh, well, this makes sense because we've set everything out. And so they're saying the things they would just say because of what we've seen them do so far.
That does tend to be how it happens. When you say like, I feel like we'll really, I mean, because we're really overthinkers, but we'll really think like comedy, set pieces and ins and outs and, you know, lines to death, and we'll overwork things. But like a lot of the fight scenes will kind of be like a diarrhea of the first draft of just what you'd kind of say if you were this character. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, that's kind of it. It's like those are the ones that would kind of just are the least worked on, probably, in a fun way. And that is fun as a writer, you know.
Your hard scenes are our easy scenes, guys.
Yeah. Honestly, it takes us 10-15 seconds to pop out.
Meanwhile, cut to like me and Drew in like a van, just like rocking back and forth. Like, okay, so I'm just gonna, I might take an extra breath here.
Yeah,
I
I'll go
know.
with you. I'll go with
So
you.
you're saying like it is funny because I like the day that you have to like drop into a piss diaper, I'm pulling you aside, being like, "I'm sorry, are you okay?" And you're like, "Oh no, this is fine. Tomorrow is."
Yeah.
I have to emotionally talk to someone.
Yeah.
It also
Margaret,
helps that everyone.
What
I
were
was
you
going to say, oh, quickly, that everyone here is such an amazing, incredible actor that brings so much. So like, we almost never run through one of these like scenes and are like, it doesn't work. Fundamentally, start over. You know, it's always the first time through is like, yeah.
Which is
They-
why it's fun to
they
write
did it
too. I mean,
over.
it's why we write those big fight scenes partly is because we're like, oh, they'll just like fucking chew into this. This will be fun. Like this will be good. We can like picture the person doing
Yeah,
it. So,
here's a full page, Josh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for the cast as well, and you know, in speaking to the writing a little bit, there's really fantastic moments where there's heightened humor and you can kind of push the jokes in your performance a little bit further, because it always is grounded in these really intimate spaces of the characters and kind of like what's the truth to them, and these really kind of beautifully crafted and nuanced interpersonal relationships that they all have. And I was interested for all of you in terms of how you worked to really find that tone at the beginning of making this show in season 1 of how far can we push the humor, and the way that over the course of 3 seasons it's almost like you can kind of go a little bit further and push those lines a little bit more, because there's so much more emotional heart that we've gotten to know and learn in these characters over the time.
Yeah, reading this season was, they send us the 3rd season, we read through it and we're like, damn, I can't believe they have faith in us to make this seem grounded and good and real. It's just like so fun that they took such big swings, that you guys took such big swings this year. And they're all almost surreal situations that feel so true. It's like a gift.
Yeah, I think like you said it in that like all the groundwork has been laid, you know, to take some bigger swings later in the seasons and on into the 3rd season, to where, you know, you don't like peak out of the tone, even though you're going really big. You in certain moments, everything has been super like set in reality, so you're able to be like, I'm going to go huge in this moment, and the audience will go with me because we've worked our way up to it.
And they also know that you're coming back to the heart of it, like that
Yes.
You're not going to hang out up there too long. You'll do it, and you'll come back to what we all sort of relate to, these real characters or real, you know, moments of heartache or whatever.
Yeah. There's like true heartbreak right next to full lols.
And I also think, because Sarah and I talk about this a lot, I really do think it is the performers too. Like, because like, I mean, we really did a little bit, not freak out, but a little bit, like season 3 is a little wild. Like, I mean, there's like, Brooke turns invisible and no one can see her. She goes to full space. There's an episode that takes place in black and white. There's like big, crazy, like fire sequences and prosthetics and like really things that we were like, okay, hold on, is this too Looney Tunes? Or we got to make sure that things feel tethered and grounded. And even in the edit, we would be like, oh, is this going to work? Because she was just at a full 10 being psycho. How are we going to cut to Carrie and then cut back and now she's crying and we believe it? And we're like, we just do. It does. It works. It's like Helena and Drew and our whole cast just like play things real. So even if something is the stupidest thing you've ever heard, the whole cast just treats it as normal. And so it just feels normal. So if the whole cast just is like, yeah, this is what's happening and we're not being jokey, you just go with it. And it's really just comedians who know not to like lean into the joke. Like also, this is such a specific thing, but I don't know if you guys have even seen this episode, the black and white episode where Drew is like tenderly putting makeup on Dana Delaney. I always example like that could have been over at Drew's playing that so straight and so sincere. It's so cringy, but it's really like a bad comedian could have overplayed that. But it's just dumb ass moments played as straight as possible that I think helps make the bigger swings. It protects us as writers.
And we'll always say that in the room, like Drew will ground this or Helena will ground this.
Yeah, fine.
Like this is Molly's big like emotional moment. Is it okay that she's in prosthetics? Yes, because like Molly grounding such emotionality, even though she's in a full, you know, her final scene.
Yes.
hearing
when she leaves the bar at the end of that episode is devastating. Like,
and
Molly,
it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work. It should be behind rubber, but it
comes through.
Good.
Every person in this cast except Jimmy Fowley is good at grounding their characters.
I mean, I think it's just such a testament to the incredible work that you've all done on this show in terms of the writing and the performances. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's been such a pleasure. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.